Om Jnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama
Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Raj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Names Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi, Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath, Sham Gunradha Kundikiri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navdeep Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Well, welcome to everyone. And thank you again to Prabhu, as usual, for wonderful kirtan. Om Jnana Timidantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Miditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gudave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Vena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dati Chapat Vande Hang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Stamsini Sadvaitam Savatutam Purusana Sehitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitam Hey Krishna Guruna Sindho Deenabandhu Vigatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabh Manu Sute Devi Anumami Hori Priya Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Ram. Again, thank you all for coming. And I wonder what thoughts might be bubbling up, what thoughts or topics or questions or...
Maharaj?
Yes, Ma?
Before we get into that part, I just wanted to ask if everyone can hear you well enough, because I can hear you fine, but your volume is a little on the low side. So I didn't know if it was me or if it's you.
I think I'm talking a little low.
Okay.
I don't think my microphone is on low input, but I'll check.
Yeah, you sound fine. It's just I have my volume cranked and it's not very loud.
Okay, so we'll try to speak loud.
Thank you.
Yeah, my settings are the usual, so I think I'm just speaking too low.
No need to strain.
Okay, and what else might be? What other thoughts following up on that? This is a sign of old age, by the way. You know, everything starts to decline. Your prana is less, and so on. Yes, what thoughts? Haridas Prabhu, what thoughts? What thoughts? Not to put you on the spot, of course, but you're muted, Prabhu. You're still muted, Haridas Prabhu.
I'm talking and now I'm not. Yes, thank you. I was thinking about a verse that came up when you were giving class the other day. into my mind, it came up. It was in the Bhagavad Gita, the 10th chapter. I think it's maybe the 7th verse, right before the four main verses, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo, Etam Vibhutim Yogam Cha, that verse that says that people that understand the greatness and the mystic potency or power of Krishna, they engage in unalloyed devotional service, without a doubt. So you were giving class and talking about the tension between people that might want to listen to more esoteric or advanced topics, and yet the tension between that and focusing on tattva and understanding more fully things as they are before becoming too eager to jump ahead. So I was thinking that if we know ourselves that I'm not fully engaged without a doubt, then I must be either not convinced of Krishna's greatness or his mystic power, or both.
Yeah, there's some lack of realization if we're still, what's the word? Yeah, still attracted to the material energy, still, then we still have a way to go. In fairness, I think that it's not like we've never taken a vow. We've taken a vow. I'll never hear about anything in Vrindavan. If it's juicy, I reject it.
No,
but
no boycott.
No boycott, exactly. But at the same time, yeah, there are things that are appropriate for us. I'm working on a Sankirtan, a book about Prabhupada's Kirtan standards. And since I have that manuscript available. If Prabhupada wrote, let's see. Regarding the songs by Jayadev, this is to Achyutananda. Shrita Kamala is not approved. Sometimes our Krishnadas Babaji sings, but it is not approved by Prabhupada. Those songs are for the Siddha Bhaktas, not for us who are Sadhaka Bhaktas or learning Bhaktas. Lord Chaitanya never divulged in public. He enjoyed them in the company of his selected 3 or 4 devotees. There's one song by Jayadev, Worshipping the 10 Incarnations. That song is all right. Mm-hmm. So it indicates that we have to have some idea of what our qualification is, what we're meant to hear, and what we respect from below. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. More thoughts about this?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Something else?
Maharaj, I had a thought, and this falls into the category maybe of sociology of religion that we were discussing recently. If you don't want to go there, we can wait for some other questions.
Let's see what happens.
Well, this is in reference to a quote. This is a devotee quoting Prabhupada. This doesn't occur in a book or in a letter, or it's a what do you call? It's an anecdote. Mm-hmm. But in it, he's speaking about Prabhupada's view of sannyas. Mm. It was during a time this is found. This is when just after Tamal Krishna Maharaj was about to go to China, mm-hmm. but for whatever political reasons there, he wasn't able to go immediately. Mm-hmm. But Prabhupada actually told him to go back and preach more in the U.S. But he said, the devotee was speaking, he said, so there were some discussions then about sannyas. And Prabhupada said, actually, I have not given any of you sannyas, but I am in a war with Maya, the material energy, and I need leaders.
Mm,
He said, it is called in wartime battlefield commission.
mm,
There are no qualified leaders, but someone has to lead the charge. So you take every fifth man, you are now lieutenant of the squad. He is really a private, but we make him lieutenant for the day, and he leads the charge.
mm,
Then Prabhupada said, it is to be understood that you are not sufficiently equipped for this fight, and most of you will go down.
mm,
And the devotee said, I know what he means now that I'm older. We knew
mm,
very little, but we were enthusiastic. Um, so thinking about that makes me wonder, Prabhupada's mood at the time was very clearly that way.
mm,
And I wonder to what extent so many things have happened in the history of our movement, especially the early history, that were in that mood, like, well, something's got to be done, and we've got to spread this movement, and here you are, so you might as well take this awesome responsibility, which you're not qualified to take.
mm. It might make us think that we have to be a little charitable.
Yeah.
Those who've had difficulties, those who've had setbacks, worked under those circumstances, take on big challenges, take on difficult assignments. And if they didn't, if they fall at some point, if they get overwhelmed, well, how much better would we have done? So, and they may get back up and do more. Or even if they're still standing, it's like, my goodness, he's still alive. He maybe lost an arm, maybe lost both arms, but he's still going. So it's easy to sit back and say zero tolerance and all of that, but then would we want to be the objects of similar zero tolerance? Of course, that term is used. It's found in this kind of particularly historical place in regard to child abuse, and I'm certainly not saying let's be lax about child abuse. But in terms of sympathy for devotees who, in general, have one or another kind of difficulty, some charity could be expected, even deserving. Yes. Even we find with Haridas Jr. that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very strict with him, but Srila Prabhupada, but the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's devotees were sympathetic. And similarly, who was that? Kala Krishnadas. He fell victim to the Bhattaharis, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected him, but the devotees were sympathetic. They found some service for him. They didn't reject him. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did. Praveen has a question on chat to me. Kirtan standard. I've been wondering. Well, first, before we go to that, was that okay, Kendra Prabhu?
Yes, Mars. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. I've been wondering that Prabhupada never quoted from Tulsi Pranam in his lectures or books. Tulsi Pranam is sung every morning in ISKCON. He may not have quoted it, but he did direct us to sing it. And if I called up Folio, I could probably find you a proof text. I remember this question always comes up. Is it okay to say Krishna Bhakti or is it Vishnu Bhakti? And Prabhupada answered that question. said that either one was all right. So here, this is from Prabhupada. This is a letter to Govinda Dasi, I believe. Yes. I'm giving herewith let's see. I'm giving herewith 3 mantras for Tulsi Devi as follows. Vrindai Tulsi Devi, Priya Keshava Shucha, Vishnu Bhakti Prati Devi, Satyabatai Namo Namaha. This is offering obeisances, bowing down, Panchanga Pranam. And when collecting leaves from the plant, the following mantras should be chanted. Tulsi Amrita Janmasi Sadatvam Keshava Priya Keshavartam Chinomi Tvam Parada Bhavashodhine. Then the mantra for circumambulating the Tulsi tree. Yani kani chapapani brahmahatyadikani cha tani tani pranashanti production pade pade. So there are 3 mantras, one for bowing down, one for circumambulating, and one for collecting the leaves. And there's more instructions, but that's a letter to Govinda Dasi, April 7th, 1970. So there you go. Are there other topics? What about the Arti song? That also Prabhupada gave us. And there's even a recording of Srila Prabhupada chanting the Arti song, Kiva Jaya Jaya Govachanti. But there's a lot of things. Well, I'm not going to give my kirtan seminar here, but there's lots of stuff that doesn't have its origin in Srila Prabhupada. That's a different kind of animal. But the Arti song, yeah, very much approved. Some other question, comment, thought, topic? Or should we all go home early?
I'll make a comment if nobody else has one in the next 30 seconds, but I need a moment to gather my thoughts.
Okay, see you in 30 seconds. Krishna Krishna Hari Hari. Hari Ram, Hari Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Ram, Hare Ram.
Okay. So my husband and I were having a talk last night. I was doing most of the talking. And I guess I've been trying to stay off social media and doing much more away from it than I have in years past. And it has come to a point that every time I go on now, I see something that is aggravating and dismaying. And the latest thing is, well, it's been an ongoing thing for a few years, but I wonder, as aspiring devotees, as members of Srila Prabhupada's movement, I wonder about my relationship to what we sometimes call the institution. And I never really consider ISKCON an institution. It's like, it's so, and I don't mean this in a pejorative sense, but it's kind of disorganized, in the sense that there's, I don't know, there's no central really, heavy duty controlling entity. And what's going on in Russia or China, they don't know who I am. I don't know who they are. I just know, they're chanting Hare Krishna. But sometimes things happen and so it reflects on the whole society. And so sometimes I feel like when I'm preaching, which I haven't been preaching because of the pandemic and I haven't gotten it together to preach online, but in preaching, I think to myself, am I trying to introduce people to an institution, Or am I just trying to introduce them to Krishna and Prabhupada? And if somebody has not heard of ISKCON, then really I'm ISKCON for them because that's what they know. And then sometimes I get worried that if I identify with ISKCON, and as people are wont to do nowadays, and they go online, generally when you go online, you find something that's not very nice when you look up ISKCON or you look up, certain personalities or whatever. And so it makes me feel reticent to have that identification of ISKCON, even though in my mind, if I'm following Srila Prabhupada's program and instructing, or guiding people or helping people and, introducing them to Srila Prabhupada in his books, then that's ISKCON, whether it has the label or not. So I guess my question is really about PR, or one's identity with the institution, because I don't really consider it an institution. I consider it a sort of a blueprint. Prabhupada gave a process, and he created a sort of infrastructure for devotees to associate together. But I've compared it to like the Good Housekeeping Institute. You have Good Housekeeping Magazine, and then you have the Good Housekeeping Research Institute, and they would, test products, and then they would tell people, this is a quality product, you can trust this. So I feel like the GBC and the institution is saying, this is, if you do Krishna consciousness this way, you're going to have a good result, So it's not so much buildings and projects and this and that, those are all sort of outflows of what Prabhupada gave us, which was the Bhakti Lata Bij, the process of Krishna consciousness, the association, and all the other things that we associate with practicing Krishna consciousness. Does that make any sense?
Let's see a show of hands. Does that make the and she dragged you into that conversation too. Okay. Well, it's of course a situation that we all face, that I remember when I first joined, there was a little fold over pamphlet, 8.5 by 11 folded in 3, called "What is ISKCON?" And it'd be interesting to try to put together such a pamphlet today. In some parts of the world, ISKCON is like a premium brand. In India, are you with ISKCON? Oh, we really have an excellent reputation, but it's not uniformly excellent. And even if it is, there are some people who simply don't, the very idea of an institution is off-putting. So I'm sure there's a lot that could be said about this. I think I talked about this the other night, that for me, what makes an institution worthwhile is the saintly people, a religious institution, the saintly people that you find in it. Otherwise, merely forms and good governance and financial good health and so on, good organization. That's still not going to give you the thing. And even if it's not the most organized of societies, if you have saintly people, then you have real value. I wonder what other thoughts there might be about this. Haridas, I saw your thumbs up or some sort of gesture there someplace. I wonder what you might have about this.
Well, I was affirming the question that we all face it, and we all have to recognize that it comes up as something for us to deal with. It is a shame that when you go and search for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, that there's such a confusing report on this one internet, that the internet's become the clearinghouse for anybody can say anything that they want. And it's just a very odd situation that people get a poor impression when they meet you or somebody as you're speaking. They get, for you, it's true, you are the representative of the society. It wasn't called the international institution, it was a society, and it is a society, but it does have organization. Srila Prabhupada was asked about that one time, I think in Hawaii, about should we, why we have to be so, oh, we should be very organized, he said, in order to push on this movement. We have to be organized. It's not unimportant, but the people, as Maharaj said, that are spiritually absorbed and bring the spiritual substance, they're ISKCON too. Maybe the heart of ISKCON.
I agree, and thank you for your affirmation. My conclusion is always whenever I think that there's some fault elsewhere, is that if I am the representative with whoever I encounter, then it's really, the real issue is what is my quality of realization and advancement and, surrender and ability to, be a via medium, so to speak, for people I meet. So, nobody's dealing with the whole institution. They're just dealing with me. So I'm the one that has to set myself aright if I want them to have a good impression.
Yeah, and I think also that people who are coming, if they're somewhat mature and they have experience in the world of varieties of institutions, they've come to the realization that even in the best of institutions, there's always some problems, and there's always some people that have problems, or administrations that don't go the way you think it should go or the way you'd like it to go. There's always problems, and it's a human institution with a divine foundation, and that's been written about, of course, in all kinds of contexts. So mature people that are more mature, they can accept, as I get involved, oh, there's this people, oh, there's factions. Okay, well, that's pretty standard.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're getting something spiritually nourishing, then they take it as important. And I remember that reading about another sociology of religion investigator who said that there was a long trend from the 1950s on out of the churches into what he coined as practice-oriented spirituality. People were looking for something practice-oriented that they could absorb themselves in, that wasn't just mediated by an institution. And so as that grew in popularity through the 60s, 70s, and people were getting that because of the Krishna consciousness movement and many other kinds of practice-oriented things that became more popular. And so the tension between an institution presenting them and people wanting to practice at home and have a real spiritual life became a theme over those decades. And so many that wanted that practice have to both embrace and tolerate the institution, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Good sociology of religion. And it made me think also, just while you were speaking, that as much as saintly people are the heart of the institution, you do want good governance, you do want responsible management, you do want all of those things. So it's not like the sadhus, or those who are just chanting and preaching. They're the guys, and those who are giving attention to the needs of institutional needs of the society are just sort of worker bees or something. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned that the other day, that those who are involved in the administration and the governance they've kept it going on an international basis, and that sacrifice, and they're having to deal external and internal pressures in their personal lives. In many ways, they've done a wonderful job.
That's a question that always arises for me when I hear people being very angry and, you know, saying things like get rid of the whole GBC and whatever. It's like, well, who's going to take their place? It's not going to be you, because you're obviously not interested. And you know, who will, you know, who will take their place? Who will do what they do? You know, it's
Well, when there's no one qualified to be Brahma, then Krishna takes the post. But I don't know that we can expect that. And Krishna will expand into 31 GBC men and take each part of the world and so on. But it's a nice thought.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't want to imply that I'm anti-institution. I'm just feeling like, you know, there's, Maharaj was saying, you know, that the essence of the institution are the saintly people. But yes, good governance and organization are important. I just, you know, I guess my real concern was the PR aspect of it, because the negative press, or whatever you want to call it, is attached to the name, attached to the institution, and, you know, how to deal with that, you know.
The Prabhupada had that famous letter to Atreya Rishi, where Atreya Rishi had, you know, observed so many shortcomings in the institution, and Srila Prabhupada spoke to the point that you can't be utopian. You're expecting that everything's going to be just perfect according to material standards, and that's not the way it works in the world. Can't expect utopia.
We were just discussing 2 days ago at breakfast that even with negative PR, even with negative things on the internet, those who are discerning and dig deep, they find the nectar. And we were pointing out that those who come on sentiment leave on sentiment. So sometimes even when someone has to dig a little deeper to find what's good about, you know, a movement, sometimes it's a not that it's good to have negative publicity, but it's almost a filtering system where the people who would just come too easily and then don't stay, they're filtered out from those who actually have a deeper interest in really trying to find what's there.
I don't know that we want to set up the institution in such a way that it's sort of a test.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I'm reminded of some years ago when I was the editor of Back to Godhead. I used to call subscribers up at random just to see what they thought about the magazine, what they liked, what they didn't like, why they were subscribers, you know, keep some sort of touch with the readership. And I spoke to one fellow, and I asked him, you know, what it brought him to subscribe. And he said, you're the people who are in the airports, right? And I said, well, we sometimes go to the airports. Yeah, you're the people who go to the airports and you approach people with those books, and you know, you're always there at the airport. I said, yeah. He said, well, yeah. He said, and I figured sooner or later one of you guys is going to approach me, and when he approaches me, I want to know what it's about beforehand. That's why he was a subscriber. Bless his heart. Yes.
I'm very grateful for Radhesha's point that sincere people will, if they are sincere, will look or try to look beyond the stuff at the top of the page, and hopefully dig deeper to find something. I often question the efficacy of the internet as far as preaching, especially since it's like the Haridas Prabhu was pointing out that as soon as you say something, anybody can say anything, and it's like vomiting in outer space. It just kind of stays there forever and looks awful and smells bad, and you can't get rid of it. But it seems to me like the old model of learning, the Vedic model, where you have to ingratiate yourself to an individual over time and serve that person in order to get proper knowledge. It's not just a matter of clicking on something and downloading and cutting and pasting. You have to serve, and it seems like the internet is for all of its wonderful qualities, doesn't allow one so many easy opportunities to just perform personal service. What to speak of take prasadam in the company of devotees.
But that's the missing feature. As you know, I have a bug report in Facebook in Zoom that there's no prasadam distribution. That would change everything.
If everyone wants to email me their address, we can send cookies.
Okay.
Radesh is smiling. He likes that. I'm not sending cookies to Hawaii, Prabhu.
If today is a slow news day, as I'm sensing it is, then maybe we should have kirtan and end early. We don't have not that we've taken it out, that we have to be here for 60 minutes every Thursday and talk about something.
Well, since we're talking, I had sent you a message, Maharaj. I was wondering your schedule, if you're planning to be in Florida for a little while, or if you're going to Bhaktivedanta Institute.
I'm in New York.
Oh, you're in New York. Somehow I thought you were. Someone told me you're heading to Florida, that you were already in Florida.
I went down to D-Land for Bhakti Charan Maharaj's disappearance
Okay.
activities, observation, memorial, and now I'm back in New York.
Okay, because there's some sort of anniversary of Gainesville's.
Yeah, that's this weekend.
Okay. All right. In that case, never mind.
Did you drive or fly to Florida, Maharaj?
Excuse me?
Did you drive or fly to New York? I mean, Florida.
I flew.
Just wondering about.
Yeah. So who would like to lead kirtan? And then there's kirtan downstairs. There's Thursday night kirtan is revived at the Bhakti Center, and I can hear it up on the 5th floor. It sounds like it's going strong.
It would be nice if we could all be there.
Maharaj,
Well, I can just step away and just, you can carry on, and I'll go downstairs.
you could do Zoom on your phone, Maharaj, and then we would be with you downstairs.
You want me to?
It's up to you completely. It's just a thought.
Sounds like fun.
If you were going already.
I can do that. You want to get tuned into the kirtan downstairs?
That sounds
Okay.
like a lot of fun.
Okay, we've got it. Switch devices and walk down, and we'll be in business.
This is going to be fun.
We're going on a field trip.